Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Resort to Love. Resort to Love is an American romantic comedy that tells the story of a woman named Erica, a professional singer whose debut gets nixed before it even has a chance to begin. So to get over the setback, she's offered an opportunity by her friend to take part as a wedding singer in residency at a luxurious resort on the island of Mauritius. She initially has a hard time adjusting to her surroundings due to not being totally over the breakup that happened between her and her ex-fiancé Jason, but she adapts quickly thanks to the help of a man that she has a chance encounter with at the beach named Caleb, and all seems to be going well at first until she ends up encountering her ex-fiancé Jason, who happens to be getting married at the exact same resort she's performing at. And this is what sparks the central conflict of the story, as Erica and Jason attempt to conceal their past relationship from Jason's new fiancée Beverly while navigating any feelings they still have left for each other, while at the same time Erica is trying to sort out the feelings that she ends up having for Caleb as well. I have to be honest up front and say that I didn't have very high expectations going into this movie. In fact, I saw the trailer before I watched it and I was ready to hate the movie afterward based on what I saw in the trailer. But after watching it, I have to say that I was actually very surprised at the amount of depth that was given to the characters' backgrounds. I found Erica to be a pretty likable character in this movie. She's goal-driven and has a good sense of humor about her, and the relationship that she develops between her and Caleb over the course of the story, as well as the already existing one that reappears between her and Jason, develop in both a mature and adorable manner. It also helps that she is a great singer, so she's got a lot more going on for her personality-wise aside from just being another girl that's on a quest for love. I may be a bit biased though, because I've been a huge fan of Christina Milian since the days of Be Cool, for anyone who remembers that movie. She performs a good chunk of this movie's soundtrack, which provides a nice break on occasion from the events that take place during the story without making it seem like it's a musical per se, which I do appreciate. I also like the character Jason. He deals with a lot of insecurities and issues throughout this movie's events that go way beyond the relationship that he used to have with Erica. There are some lingering things that exist between him and Erica still, but he never comes across as your typical bitter ex, which again, I really appreciate. And the final main character, Caleb, is another character who once again I thought was well done. He's a military veteran who's trying to make amends with his brother Jason due to having spent so much time overseas and missing out on important events in his life, but he finds himself falling for Erica the more time that he spends with her, and this causes some tension between the two brothers. The relationship between the two brothers was very interesting to me. One of Jason's biggest issues is that he's always comparing himself to his brother and his military accomplishments while seeing himself as little more than a lowly office worker. His brother Caleb tries to cheer him up in this regard, but Erica's presence throws him off his game, so he's forced to confront the divide that exists not just between him and other characters, but also between himself and his core values. I was not at all expecting the level of detail that was given to the characters and the relationships between them. Rather than lashing out at each other in dramatic fashion, which is usually typical in rom-coms these days, the characters in this movie hash out their conflicts in more calm and measured manner by comparison, which is something that I find very refreshing. I think part of the appeal behind this movie is the fact that its setting doesn't take place in your average city/country environment. The exotic flair of the resort that the characters all stay in, as well as the environment around them, definitely amped up its enjoyability factor. The cinematography in general is decent enough, but the scenery around the island of Mauritius, ranging from the beaches to the palm trees and everything in between, is an absolute feast for the eyes, and the luxurious atmosphere of the resort where the characters all stay at and the parties that take place there almost makes you feel like you're on vacation with the characters, which is a welcome feeling, especially during these times. Other characters help to mix things up a bit as the story progresses. One of my favorite characters in this regard was Barrington. He's an Australian musician who performs along with Erica during the wedding dances, as well as serving as a tour guide of sorts, and I just loved how casual and charming he was in terms of personality. I enjoyed every scene that he was in. Unfortunately, there aren't many other notable characters in the rest of this movie's story that add anything meaningful to it. Jason's fiancée Beverly is okay, but she doesn't have any depth to her character whatsoever. The relationship between her and Jason just doesn't compare to the one that existed between Jason and Erica. Based on what I said about this movie thus far, you'd be forgiven for assuming that I was giving it a positive review. While I do think that there are good parts about it, I have to say that as a romantic comedy, it is lacking in both romance and comedy. The romance that exists between Erica and the character that she ends up being with takes a long time to develop. There are little things that happen here and there that show hints of what's going on, but it's not until the last 20 minutes or so that things finally start coming to a head. On one hand, I do appreciate how maturely they handle the romance in this movie and that they don't make Erica so quick to fall in love with the character at first sight, but on the other hand, I felt that it just moved way too slowly for my taste. I felt the movie would have been more interesting if the romance and the conflicts which followed it were sped up just a little bit. As for the comedy in this movie, there's not a whole lot of funny scenes that are featured in it. There are a few moments here and there that do make you chuckle from time to time, but most of the comedy comes in the form of running gags that get pretty old pretty quick. Without getting too much into spoiler territory, one of the examples of comedy featured in this movie involves a species of gecko that's native to the island of Mauritius, and how Erica is always flipping a freaky deaky bird every time she sees one of these reptiles around, even though they are literally the least intimidating reptile in the whole animal kingdom. There was just a lot of silly scenarios surrounding that reptile that didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Overall, Resort to Love is a surprisingly enjoyable movie, more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be anyway, but it needs a lot more oomph when it comes to the romance and comedy, which are supposed to be the main selling points to begin with. I will say that I did enjoy how mature the characters were in this movie and how they weren't always setting out to cause unnecessary drama, so if you're looking for a rom-com that has that kind of spin going for it, then I think you definitely enjoy this movie. The movie has a lot of good things going for it. Its characters are elaborate and likable, the music is fantastic, and its scenery is jaw-dropping to look at, but the key elements in the romance and comedy are lacking that extra level of polish that I think would make this movie that much more special. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Resort to Love. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the French action flick, The Last Mercenary. Bye bye!